I'm very excited to be talking in front of you guys all tonight. I'm surprised so many people came. So thank you all for that, first of all. And I want you guys to imagine scrolling through your favorite social media app. How often do you pause to question if what you're looking at is actually real or not? How many times have you used a search engine just for the first thing that pops up to be an artificially generated answer? The use of AI has exploded in an incredibly short time span, and with this expansion, we are seeing its drawbacks ever more clearly. While AI is an incredibly powerful tool, it is severely dysregulated. The general population should not be used as a test subject for AI. We are impacted on a societal, environmental, and personal scale that was not considered and quantified before this use of AI. And as an environmental science major here at UMKC, I have learned the relations and importance of our ecosystems and natural resources that these data centers take up. And there's a lot of jargon in this field, and my background aids me in understanding and the scale of AI's effect, and hopefully in creating a more digestible piece of information for you all here today. Generative AI is full of possibilities and can be utilized in many different ways. However, it comes at a steep cost. AI depletes natural resources and increasingly threatens both public health and the affordability in our communities. While AI has the potential to be a valuable tool, it needs time to be properly developed in a way that mitigates these negative effects. Filtered fresh water is required for cooling equipment. This means that drinkable water is being removed from communities in and around data centers. And according to an online journal published by the Science and Environmental Health Network, data centers currently operate with limited transparency on water use. According to Frac Tracker, which has compiled crowdsourced interactive data sets that tally permitted, existing, and proposed data centers in the United States, federal oversights may be loosened further by White House plans introduced in July 2025. Which will enable the rapid build-out of data centers by dismantling what regulations do exist and by offering exemptions to federal statutes and streamlined permits under the Clean Water Act. Already, we have seen blows being dealt to the Clean Water Act. An article published by the Center for Health, Environment, and Justice touches on the case of City and County of San Francisco versus the Environmental Protection Agency, where it was affirmed that the EPA did not have the power to control and hold polluters responsible when water quality falls below standard. So not only are we faced with these water challenges, but we have seen an increase in carbon emissions as well. As big corporations are rolling back and abandoning their climate commitments to accommodate the usage of AI, which is resulting in lower air quality and adding to the acceleration of climate change. Dr. Jim Gwyn, an advocate for clean energy, states in a Forbes article published in 2024 that corporate climate pledges surged recently, with over 500 companies committing to net zero emissions by 2040. And that momentum continued between June 2022 and October 2023, with a 40% increase in net zero targets. Yet as the AI revolution gains traction, cracks in these promises are beginning to show. Recently, analysis reveals that only 4% of these companies are on track to meet their goals, highlighting a disconnect between corporate rhetoric and reality. The failure from these companies to commit to their climate pledges in lieu of capitalizing on AI shows where their interests lie. We are all a part of the ecosystem, and data centers have and will continue to impact the climate of our home and the resources in which we rely on. This issue is closer than you may think. In an article published by KCTV, plans for a supercomputer AI training facility to be built in North Kansas City in 2026 was reported. And with this facility, in addition to Meta's data center, which already exists in the Northland, we must ask ourselves, how will this impact our air quality? How will this affect drinkable water available to KC residents? What about our water bills, our electricity bills? Now, this issue does not lie with the individual. I'm not going to shame anybody in here for asking a couple of questions to AI, or for that one time you might have stuck gum somewhere that it doesn't really belong. But we owe it to ourselves to understand what is happening to our resources. Ignorance does not change the fact that it is happening and it is affecting all of us. So the change that must happen can only occur if the public is educated and willing to show up. AI can be an incredible tool, but because it is so severely dysregulated, the benefits it can provide us right now is far outweighed by the effect it has on our climate and our resources. Activism is needed to send this message, but in the face of big companies that prioritize profit, I understand it can be daunting. We don't have to do it alone. Locally, you can follow along with Climate Action KC, which is a nonprofit that aims to achieve net zero greenhouse gases in Kansas City by 2050. In addition to their partner, the Mid-America Regional Council, which provides detailed action levels on a legal scale and coordinates volunteer opportunities. Our society is not dependent on the use of generative AI. We have functioned perfectly well in our modern day without it for generations. It is not something we need, especially when it comes at the cost of public health and resources. An argument that I came across during my research was that in comparison to AI, the water usage required by crops, corn in this case, is on par, if not above that of AI's. And while this is true, AI is not as established as our dependence on corn is for ethanol, something we've used for decades. So we still have time to put the proverbial brakes on and implement other alternatives for generative AI before we become reliant on it. AI will continue to rapidly develop at an unprecedented rate and will leave a scar on our ecosystem that will take decades to fix. If AI systems implement stricter regulations, we can utilize it as a tool while minimizing or even completely mitigating these negative effects. But change like this does not come without effort and outreach. It takes a collection of voices to be heard. So please don't shy away from researching and getting involved with controversial subjects. I know it can be difficult and yes, very often stressful, but it is necessary to ensure a better future for ourselves and following generations. So while AI can be a valuable tool, it needs time to be properly developed in a way that mitigates its negative effects. Change is not easy, especially on a large scale, but everything that's worth doing takes effort. And originally, that concluded my speech. But since I found myself on this platform with you all today, and I have the chance for my words to be heard by all of your ears, I want you to understand that I could not fit all of the stuff about AI into the time allotted for this speech. I could not do full justice to this topic. We are facing a biodiversity crisis, a climate crisis. We are in a mass extinction, and it is caused by anthropogenic activity, human activity. So if you guys walk away with anything today, I want it to be that your impact matters. No matter how small you think it may be, change only starts at a small scale. And whatever you're doing does have an impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Have you ever been watching a movie and you see one of these characters and just at the most inopportune time, they just burst out with a swear word? I know I have. And I'll admit it. It has made me laugh before. However, the problem comes that with Tourette syndrome, this is the only representation I've seen. Okay. The CDC defines Tourette syndrome as a movement disorder that is characterized by having 2 or more motor tics and 1 or more vocal tic persistently for over a year with an onset in childhood, and there can be no underlying medical condition or medication that could be the root cause. It's also important to note that Tourette's Association of America, along with many other experts, say that there is a high comorbidity rate with other mental health conditions such as obsessive compulsive disorder, autism spectrum disorder, and anxiety. This topic is important to me because I myself have Tourette syndrome. And because of this interest, I have done a lot of research into this topic and figuring out the ways in which media portrayal of Tourette syndrome affects those with the condition. I hope today to persuade you that Tourette syndrome should not be treated as the butt of the joke when it's represented. And I hope to do this by explaining how it currently is treated as a punchline, how the rise of fake claiming culture as a result to media presence has developed, and also explain the resulting shame and anxiety that is caused by the stigma and negativity surrounding this disorder. Now, when making a piece of media about Tourette syndrome, it's really easy to think about making a comedy. When I did an audience analysis of my class, I found that roughly three-fourths of the participants stated that one of their most favorite genres was comedy. And as well as this, in a 2014 study done by Calder-Sprackman and his colleagues in the Canadian Journal of Neurological Sciences, they found that roughly 43% of the Tourette's media that they analyzed were comedies. Think Cartman in the 2007 episode of South Park, where he's imitating Tourette syndrome. Or, more recently, in 2024, there was a movie called I Swear that has been praised for its accurate portrayal of the condition. But one thing these two portrayals have in common is something called coprolalia, or the repetition of obscene language. In that same Calder-Sprackman study I mentioned earlier, they noted that roughly 73% of the media they analyzed had a portrayal of coprolalia, which is much higher than the statistic that it shows up in people who actually have this condition. Goldenberg and colleagues found this number to be roughly 8% in 1994, and Freeman and colleagues found this number to be roughly 25% in 2009. So with this rise in media portrayal, there's a rise in awareness in Tourette syndrome. But with this rise in awareness, there has also become a rise of imitators. In 2022, there was a creator called Ticks and Roses who created content focusing on Tourette syndrome and portrayed themselves as someone with this condition. It was later found out that this person did not have Tourette syndrome. One of their family members spoke out and said that they did not have this condition, and this sparked media controversy in which Tourette's creators began talking about this and making a bunch of videos on their content and why they were quote unquote faking. One of these creators is someone called Ticking Together, who made a lot of videos on Ticks and Roses in 2022 on YouTube. In these videos, they focused on the tics portrayed in the videos and how they were over-exaggerated or staged. And then 2 years later, the same creator made another video. But this one wasn't quite on Ticks and Roses per se. Instead, focusing more on the culture surrounding it in what is now called fake claiming culture, which is the tendency to look at a person with a condition and say that they are faking. In this 2024 video, Ticking Together said, you can't just look at someone, a 30-second clip of their life, and say, yep, that's fake. They said in this video that they have had a nearly daily occurrence of people commenting on their videos and telling them that they are a liar, calling them a fake, and that many other content creators who have Tourette syndrome face this same issue. Now, because of this, there is a fear of not being believed. And with this fear of not being believed, many people feel shame about their condition. In a study in 2023, Martindale and colleagues published in the Child Psychiatry and Human Development that the constant microaggressions against people with Tourette syndrome can lead to the erosion of self-worth and the exacerbation of other mental health conditions. Also in 2023, Pring and colleagues published in the European Child and Adolescent Psychiatry an analysis of Tourette studies. And in this analysis, they found that people with Tourette syndrome have a fear of being mocked, noticed, judged, rejected, teased, all for their condition. And with this negativity, it can lead to something called suppression or masking, which Specht and colleagues published in the Behavior Research and Therapy in 2013 that this act of suppression itself is not inherently harmful. There is a misconception that suppression can actually lead to a rise in tics once you stop, and this is just not true. However, in that Pring study I mentioned earlier, they note that suppression can be exhausting, and that the situation that surrounds the reason why people suppress can lead to the exacerbation of other mental health conditions. So this negativity that is surrounding Tourette syndrome, it is partially due to the portrayal of Tourette syndrome in media, because media shapes the way that we view our world, how we view ourselves, and how we view identities outside of ourselves. So, with the rise in fake claiming culture and the resulting shame and stigma surrounding Tourette syndrome, this disorder should not be treated as a joke when it's represented. Jokes are supposed to be funny, but there's a difference between making a joke and making someone the butt of your joke. Thank you.
I want you to envision your loved one, the person who you care for most in the world. Now, picture them horribly suffering, trapped in a body that no longer functions as it should. Their prognosis is poor, and in the months they have left, they will be in excruciating pain. Now, imagine that they are requesting a way to end their life peacefully, but there is no legal option to do so, and they are forced to continue living in agony. Well, this is a present reality for thousands of individuals. According to a 2023 book on end-of-life care by the National Institutes of Health, around 7,000 Americans die every single day from terminal illnesses. There is an option that can prevent unnecessary suffering, but it is only legal in 13 US jurisdictions. The subject of medical aid in dying became extremely personal to me as I watched an elderly relative slowly die of terminal cancer. Medical aid in dying provides a safe, humane way for individuals with terminal illnesses to exercise full bodily autonomy and be provided with relief from further suffering. It should be legalized in all US states. But before examining the policy itself, we must first look at why it is necessary. According to a 2026 article from the Marie Curie organization, a terminal illness is defined as an incurable condition or illness that will result in a person's death, typically within 6 to 12 months. I'm sure that some of these are familiar to you. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, motor neuron disease, and advanced cancers are just a few examples. While some patients are able to manage symptoms, others are left bedridden, unable to perform daily activities, and are completely dependent upon others to stay alive. While scientific advancements are underway to detect these illnesses before they become terminal, what can be done for those currently experiencing unimaginable pain and a fatal prognosis? By supporting the legalization of medical aid in dying in all US states, you can help create a future where patients with terminal illnesses can exercise full bodily autonomy and determine their own end-of-life decisions. According to an undated article from Death with Dignity, a nonprofit end-of-life advocacy group, this practice allows terminally ill, consenting patients to self-administer a prescribed medication to peacefully hasten their death. In states with Death with Dignity laws, as these are called, this is a highly regulated process. The patient must be diagnosed with a terminal illness that will lead to death in 6 months or less, be an adult, be capable of making and communicating decisions about their healthcare, and act completely voluntarily, with no coercion involved. 2 healthcare professionals must determine their eligibility, and many states also have waiting periods. Thus, this is not a rushed decision. It is a careful and deliberate process. Terminal illness strips away independence, predictability, and bodily autonomy. Medical aid in dying restores agency. Now, please raise your hand if you've had to euthanize a pet. That's what I thought. It's an experience common to many in the audience, including myself. When we euthanize pets who are terminally ill or in chronic pain, it is widely accepted that we're doing such animals a favor, allowing them to die peacefully while being surrounded by the ones they love. Yet when the same discussion turns to people, this end-of-life respect does not seem to apply. Take the story of Barbara Goodfriend, documented in a 2025 article by CBS News. Barbara was an 83-year-old woman who had been diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's. As her health deteriorated, Barbara chose medical aid in dying, which was legal in her home state of New Jersey. As a result, Barbara died peacefully, surrounded by the ones she loved, who supported her decision. Before her death, Barbara addressed critics of the practice, saying, "If it's not a good idea for you, don't consider it, but there has to be an option for those who want it." This is the entire point of legalizing medical aid in dying in all US states. The medical system should respect the wishes, values, and priorities of patients with terminal illnesses. It is a procedure that acknowledges the fact that for many people, quality of life is more important than sheer quantity. Nevertheless, some people are concerned that the legalization of medical aid in dying will undermine palliative or end-of-life care. And according to the audience analysis that I performed in class, I know that many believe this. However, evidence from states where it is legal suggests otherwise. Medical aid in dying is not a replacement for palliative care. It is a complement to it. It is only considered when all other treatment options have failed and prolonged suffering continues. Others are concerned that physicians with religious or moral obligations will be forced to participate. Now, while this is a valid concern, it is simply not the case. Physicians are by no means required to participate if it conflicts with their personal beliefs. The purpose of legalization is not to pressure anybody into choosing death. Instead, it is to respect the wishes and priorities of those who do. Now, I would like you to imagine two scenarios. The first scenario is our current one, where medical aid in dying is illegal in 38 US states. In states where this practice is forbidden, individuals who wish to go through this procedure are forced to stay alive against their will, enduring prolonged suffering while their loved ones watch helplessly. The second scenario is a future one, where medical aid in dying is legal in all 50 US states. Here, individuals have the right to choose how they want to die. Those who do want to die in this manner are able to, while those who do not can die in a natural, unassisted manner. There's no pressure to choose a particular end-of-life option. It simply remains a decision for those who want it. And if we were to do so, our country would not be the first to fully legalize it. According to a 2023 article from Death with Dignity, medical aid in dying is already legal in Canada, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and many other countries. Thus, the idea is not new, but it is revolutionary. Now that we have examined medical aid in dying and its impact, where does that lead you? By supporting the full legalization of medical aid in dying in all US states, you can help create a future where individuals with terminal illnesses can have control over their end-of-life decisions. But for national issues such as this one, it is crucial to start more locally. In a 2025 article from the Missouri Independent, it is explained that a bill that would legalize medical aid in dying in the state of Missouri has made it to the House, but lacks the Republican sponsor necessary for the legislation to actually pass. Until we gain such a sponsor, this legislation won't gain any traction. This is where you come in. The impact of one person cannot be understated. I urge you to talk to your friends and family members about medical aid in dying and raise awareness about what it truly is. Contact our state representatives and support the efforts of nonprofit organizations like Death with Dignity or Compassion and Choices. We have the evidence. We have the testimony of loving and peaceful farewells. What we need now is the courage to take a stand for patient autonomy. That way, when you picture your loved one, the person who you care for most in the world, you'll know that the choice is in their hands. Let's talk more about death. Thank you.
So, just the other day, I was in an incredibly awkward situation with my best friend back home. If I was in person, I would have sat her down, talked to her face to face, or given her a hug to show that I value her and her opinion. But I was stuck staring at a screen, and any way that I tried to word my thoughts just seemed too harsh. And that's when a friend here suggested that I use ChatGPT to format a response. And that suggestion made me think. The situation that I was in was so human in that it was two best friends who didn't know how to communicate with each other in either of the languages that we shared. But the easiest solution was just to loop in AI. Isn't that strange? And in order to dive deeper into this, we have to learn more about AI. So what is AI? Artificial intelligence doesn't quite have a simple definition. According to Abigail Bowman at NASA, AI is any computer system that can perform complex tasks normally done by humans. And this ranges from computer vision, which is like object recognition, medical diagnostics, all the way to predictive analytics, which is like stock market analysis. And what we use on the daily with ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, DeepSeek, all of these are LLMs, or large language models, which are designed to generate human-like text. What is cognition? According to Cambridge Cognition Limited, cognition refers to a range of mental processes related to the acquisition, storage, manipulation, and retrieval of information. So in simpler words, that means everything related to how the brain processes the world, external and internal. Now, according to Max Winter, who did a systematic review of studies in cognitive psychology, cognition is inevitably linked to language. And if you think about it, the way that we term, remember, judge things all has to do with the words that we use to represent those things, which is why LLMs, which generate text, are so integrated in our lives. Now, in my audience analysis of my communications class, the respondents sent me a variety of reasons why they use AI in their daily lives. This ranged from finding recipes, to communicating in sticky situations, to drafting emails, to having academic questions explained like we're 5. And 75% of them believe that it is acceptable to use AI responsibly in academic settings. Personally, in my physics class last year, whenever my teacher gave me contradicting explanations for the same question, which happened a lot more than you would think, I resorted to ChatGPT to give me an explanation for me to pass the class. But when it comes to recipes, I believe that it's another experience altogether. When it involves a FaceTime with your mom trying to master her dad's signature recipe, or you're sitting on the floor with cookbooks sprawled around you and you're flipping through pages. If you notice, a lot of our usage of AI stems from our craving and need for instant gratification, whether that be in an essay outline or the recipe for our next meal. If I have 3 hours to submit the essay, it doesn't really make sense to sit in 3 hours and use every minute to do it, when I could have AI write me an outline and I can edit and add some interesting tidbits and then submit. But this increased usage of AI leads to dependence. And according to Dr. Michael Gerlich, who is an MBA PhD at the Swiss Business School, he says that individuals who rely too heavily on AI become less proficient at engaging in independent, deep analysis. And this leads to a superficial understanding of the information and the lack of assessment of quality of arguments. The less that we do these tasks related to critical thinking, the worse we become. And naturally, the more we use LLMs. This is the same pattern that we saw with GPS and calculators. When many of us come across a math problem, very few of us still crunch out those numbers and do those mental calculations. The rest of us just pull out our handy-dandy calculators and let the algorithm do the work for us. However, with increased AI literacy and knowledge about responsible usage of LLMs specifically to only supplement and quicken the organization of whatever information we're working with, we can maintain our cognitive levels, or at least soften the blow and keep them for a little longer. And this is important because many studies show that students who are over-dependent on AI fail to fact-check the information and are quick to accept whatever is thrown at them. This allows for the spread of targeted misinformation. But that's a whole nother conversation. Now, if we make amends, we can see a world where AI is only used to augment our efforts and is just there to help us save some time. We will be the ones that choose the article that we're trying to read. And maybe we can use AI to summarize it for us, pull out the important points, or to find articles related to the one we pulled so that we can have resources that extend our search for knowledge. But on the other hand, we could see an exponential increase in usage of AI, where we become so dependent, so reliant on these LLMs and AI overviews of browsers like Google that we lose the ability to think for ourselves and evaluate the information around us. A few hundred years ago, when society was still evolving, there was so much physical labor into our daily lives that we didn't need gyms. They weren't this popular or this necessary. But now we live a sedentary lifestyle. We sit in that same chair for 8 hours and eat unhealthier foods. So we resort to working out our muscles in a gym to save them from atrophying. Will we require mental gyms to save our brains from deterioration too? I implore all of you to think about how integrated AI is into your own lives and how you can put in an extra minute or two to do your own research, seek credibility, and fact check the information that you gather, but also the information that gets thrown at you to make sure that you aren't losing independence of thought and cognition. Thank you.
Can I have your attention one more time here? Because I do have something important, which is the winner. But first, let's congratulate again everybody who spoke tonight, and thank you all for coming. So you saw some great speeches on great topics, which reflects the intelligence and insights of our students here at UMKC. We're going to have 3 runners up, and then I'm going to announce the winner. So the winner then is Celine Reed. So thank you so much to all of you. Our runners-up then are River, Emmitt, and Samrita. Very great speeches, and thank you all for coming. Have a great evening.